Prepare the cabin for landing. Please return to your seats and bring your seatbelt upright.
New Zealand. It's a country of stunningly beautiful, pristine wilderness that makes you feel as you've been whisked away into the vast magical realms of the Lord of the Rings universe. You can't help but take billions of gigabytes worth of photographs, as the natural beauty surrounding you is simply too captivating not to capture. You want to return again and again, or perhaps even move here one day. Those who have seen the previous video about the breathtaking Milford Sound already have a taste of what I mean, and a few more of this country's magnificent locations will help paint a more complete picture. But before we immerse ourselves in these natural wonders, let's briefly recap what we've already explored and go over what our trip plan is. We flew to the South Island in the city of Queenstown, from where we immediately headed to one of the most beautiful tourist destinations, Milford Sound, located about a 3-hour drive away. On the way there, we stopped for several nights in the small but cozy town of Tianu, where we took a short hike before continuing on the fjord itself. There, on a small boat, we sailed among towering rocks and out to the Tasman Sea, where we got splashed by spray straight from a waterfall without leaving the boat. On the way back from the fjord, we hiked up to a small snow-capped peak, enjoying the snow we had been missing. But now it's time to explore new territories. In addition to Milford Sound, our trip plan includes exploring the outskirts of Queenstown and Wanaka, going snowboarding on the local slopes, and visiting the Aoraki National Park with the highest mountain in New Zealand, Mount Cook. Along the way, we'll stop at Lake Tekapo and some other lakes, which is what this video is about. We're starting this part of the trip from Queenstown, where we've been staying during different parts of our trip and have already hit the slopes for a few days of snowboarding, but I'll talk more about that in the next video. Now's the best time to hit the like button and of course subscribe, as it's really important for the channel's growth. Mount Cook and Lake Tekapo are located northeast of Queenstown, around a 3-hour drive. Both of these points are located quite close to each other, but it's a classic New Zealand situation, when you need to make a good detour among the mountains to get from one place to another. Both of these places are very popular among tourists, and I'll tell you why a bit later. And for now, let me tell you what else you can see here and what to do on the way there. Even the simple rivers flowing alongside the route appear as if they were painted with vibrant turquoise hues by an artist's brush. It's truly a scenic spot worthy of a brief stop to stretch your legs. Something we completely overlooked and didn't plan at all for this trip was visiting wineries. But a fortunate set of events certainly pleased us. We just passed a winery that we really like. We sometimes buy their wine in Australia and Melbourne, and now we will make a small U-turn and go there. I think it's worth taking a small detour here and talk about New Zealand wine. New Zealand has around a dozen different wine regions, and we are currently passing one of them, Central Otago. Despite the fact the production of wine for export in the country began relatively recently, it has gained worldwide acclaim for varieties of Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir, or for those unfamiliar, for good whites and reds. In fact, Sauvignon Blanc, the first New Zealand wine recognized globally, was produced by the very winery we are now visiting. Though not at these specific vineyards, but at those located in the northern part of the South Island, in the Marlborough region. But to be honest, I only learned these details while editing this video, as we had no initial plans for the visit. But anyway, winery is always a good option for beautiful vineyard views, perfect to enjoy with a short break for lunch. It made for a great stop midway to Tekapo, although the person driving can't fully enjoy the winery experience. While the country permits drivers over 20 to have a minor blood alcohol level, I wouldn't risk it, especially since you can always take a bottle of wine at a very attractive price for the evening after the drive, which by the way takes up almost the entire short winter daylight hours, taking into the accounts all the beautiful stops. As we get closer to Tekapo, we should probably share what's on our to-do list here. Lake Tekapo is the same name of the city, which sits on the shores of the mountain lake of the same name. This town is almost equally distant from the three South Island cities with international airports. These are Queenstown, Christchurch, and Dunedin. First of all, Lake Tekapo is of course famous for its dark skies, or more precisely, for the opportunity to watch the stars with almost no interference from the so-called light pollution. This refers to the light from major cities that illuminates the sky, obstructing a full view of the stars. This place is listed as a UNESCO Dark Sky Reserve, and according to the Bortle scale proposed by amateur astronomer John Bortle in 2001, Lake Tekapo ranks as an almost ideal stargazing location. There is even a chance to witness the southern lights here, but of course if you're lucky with the weather and solar activity. In addition, Lake Tekapo itself is the second largest glacier lake in New Zealand, fed entirely by melted glacier waters, which gave the lake a beautiful milky blue hue. Also, if you come here in the spring, you can take some beautiful photos against the backdrop of blooming lupins. There are also several ski resorts and hot springs in the area, providing plenty for tourists to do here. Since we arrived after sunset, our adventures begin tomorrow. For now, just a brief introduction to our furry neighbors. We checked out of our Airbnb and arrived at one of the attractions in the city, the Church of the Good Shepherd. This is a quite small church, and it's very popular among photographers who come here at night to photograph the starry sky against the backdrop of the mountains and this church. Yes, you can find millions of photos online of this small church against the starry sky backdrop. Perhaps you've even seen some yourself. Well, in the daytime, all that remains is to look at this nice building and walk around with views of the lake and mountains. We've made a couple of circles around the city and looked at all the main attractions. And now, right behind the camera, there is a monument to the Collie dogs who helped build the city, and without their help, it wouldn't have been possible to do this. So they put this very cool monument right almost in the very center of the city. Well, these were not all the places we wanted to visit in the city. However, since drone flights over the city are prohibited, we decided to head to a small mountain right within the city. Along the way, walking across a nice bridge over the Tekapo river flowing right from the lake of the same name. We are filming the car driving away, and now Leah is coming back for me. Now we are going up there to the mountain. Okay, I need to go around the car on the other side, and yeah, we'll go up to that mountain now, and there should be a perfect view from there. Our friends have already been there on this trip and highly recommended going there. To get to the observatory, you need to pay 8 New Zealand dollars to pass. Alternatively, you can hike up the mountain, and the cost of this will be about 1 hour of your time and probably one sweaty t-shirt. But if you're staying in town for a while, then why not? There are some plenty decent views along the uphill track. At Leah's request, I'll leave this video here as a very sweet memory in all meanings of this most delicious pistachio eclair in the southern hemisphere. And for you, I'll leave the name of the place in the description. We drove up the mountain and it's really beautiful here. Here is an observatory of one of the universities, and as you can see, the telescope dome is located on this side, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think there is also a 5th one over there. All 5 telescopes here on the Mount John belong to the University of Canterbury and form New Zealand's primary research observatory, and in 2012, the area around the observatory was declared one of 4 so-called international dark sky reserves. Yep, it's beautiful here. Very beautiful here. In the end, we decided not to stay for stargazing, because our plans for that day were also to drive to Mount Cook, and if we stayed for the stargazing, we would have to drive home in complete darkness. But we will definitely correct this mistake on our next trip. By the way, before we leave here, there is an online camera installed here on the mountain, so that you can always check the real-time weather conditions. I think that's all, and we can continue on our way. Remember I said that it's impossible not to stop here every couple of kilometers, no? Well, that means now I just said it, because it's the absolute truth. Changing the lens. We'll be shooting shape. In the previous video, I already mentioned that here are simply a huge number of sheep that can be seen just along the roads. And there is a good reason for this. New Zealand ranks in the top 3 global wool producers, and merino wool clothing made here is even popular in Australia, which ranks even higher on this list. For example, this jacket that kept me warm throughout this trip is made from the wool from this very sheep, and at some point we even passed sheep of this New Zealand brand. So, as they say, it's a small world. Another beautiful stop on our way to Mount Cook was Lake Pukaki. the immediate neighbor of Lake Tekapo, which offers equally picturesque views. The views here are absolutely stunning. It's just breathtaking. And this happens about every 5-10 kilometers. We keep stopping over and over and over. It's definitely worth it, but I think we might not have enough time to cover everything we planned today, which is classic, right? By the way, I think it's time for some Lord of the Rings references.
You shall not pass!
After all, like in many other locations, The Lord of the Rings, or rather one of the parts of The Hobbit, was also filmed here. Anyway, it's always nice to have a small picnic with such a gorgeous view. As a result, this lake turned out to be one of those places you can't easily leave and you want to stay here as long as possible, because every new angle reveals even more breathtaking views. Lake Pukaki is the largest of the mountain lakes in this region, and all you see now is still the lake. So sometimes driving along the road, it seems as it will never end. But we certainly don't mind such scenery. Looking at this, I think you can understand why it's very difficult to turn away from such views. But still, the most interesting part of the lake is of course its northern shore, which hosts the very place that inspired this part of the journey. So far, I think this is the most beautiful road we have seen on our entire trip to New Zealand. You know, we've got a major issue with New Zealand. Everything's beautiful, it's just too beautiful. You plan to drive from one place to another, thinking it would take about an hour and a half, but it ends up taking 4 hours because, I mean, how? How can you not stop and take a photo or shoot a video at views like this? It's impossible. So it looks like everything we planned to do today won't happen. We will only have time to get to the place and take a super short hike, but we have one more day in the city, which is 25 minutes by car from here. So tomorrow we will return here and do an even longer hike. Oh, it's loud. So everything we expected to see today, we will see tomorrow. I hope Leah comes back for me because it's a long walk to the city here and it soon will be very cold. Yeah, let's see. Yes, I didn't stay here to freeze, and we quickly drove towards the nearest glacier's viewpoint before darkness fell. This viewpoint is higher than we thought. We parked down there and now we hiking up. But we almost at the very top though. The Tasman Glacier, or Haupapa as Maori call it, is New Zealand's longest glacier at approximately 27 kilometers long and represents almost a third of all the ice in all New Zealand's glaciers. Although from this angle you won't even be able to tell. Even if you look at the glacier from space, you won't immediately understand its location because it's long been covered by a layer of stones, dirt and even ash from fires in neighboring Australia. Now, the glacier itself lies quite far from the observation desk, and that's because it's shrinking every year. This blue lake that you see now was once part of the glacier, but has completely melted. The only thing that shows that this used to be a glacier is small icebergs that have moved away from the main body of the glacier and have not yet melted. Over the past 40 years, the glacier has retreated more than 7 kilometers, and it's believed that in 75 years the glacier will completely disappear. The fact that the glacier is covered with layers of dirt and stones only accelerates its absorption of sunlight, and as a result, the melting of the ice. Even with a drone, I couldn't fly to the beginning of the glacier because it had already retreated for a very long distance. As I said, we had one more day to visit Mount Cook National Park, so let's use the magic of editing and jump slightly into the future. Next day, we immediately went without stopping to the parking lot where we ended up yesterday. Unfortunately, it got a bit gloomy as the sun almost completely disappeared behind the clouds, but this revealed completely different colors of the ice frozen on the tops of these mountains. Camera just beat the dust. This is what a sleepy morning looks like, but coffee certainly helped summon the energy to hit the trail. Back to our ongoing series on New Zealand toilets. Check this out. These guys are actually chained to the ground. Maybe to keep them from blowing away in the wind? Who knows? And of course, they're sparkling white as usual. You can even make a separate video about this, how the toilets, which are located in very remote places like the middle of the forest or on top of a mountain, remain snow white. But that's not what we're talking about now. Now it's time to set off towards another glacier, Hooker Glacier, which is located on the other side of Mount Cook from yesterday's glacier. This glacier is named after English botanist William Jackson Hooker, who has a rather interesting surname. And now, in modern context, the name of the glacier can be interpreted in a very interesting light. And yep, sorry for this kind of joke, but it was too obvious. We've hit our first stop, and this is Muller Lake Lookout. And over there is, I think it's Muller Glacier, but not 100% sure. It's actually quite hard to spot the glacier from here, as it's covered in mud. I can barely see the ice from here, but Okay, let me have another look, and yeah, don't really see it, but the sign swears it's somewhere there. So I guess it's just somewhere out there under the mud. Unfortunately, the Hooker Glacier is no exception. This glacier has also melted significantly in the recent decades and has moved quite far away from this observation point. Therefore, not to mention the camera, it was quite difficult even for us to see it with the naked eye. Now it's time to talk about Mount Cook or Mount Aoraki National Park. Mount Cook, after which this park is named, is the highest mountain in New Zealand. The mountain was first summited in 1894 by these three New Zealand guys right on Christmas Day, while everyone else in the country was quietly resting. And more than 50 years after that, in 1947, this peak was summited by Edmund Hillary, who 6 years later, together with Sherpa Tenzing Norgay, would become the first people in the world to reach the summit of Mount Everest. So yes, let's just say that the first foreigner to conquer Everest was a New Zealander. But back to Mount Aoraki. It is believed that the mountain was formed about 10 million years ago after tectonic plate movements. But according to the legend, which I like much better, the sons of Raki Nui, or the Sky Father, were traveling by canoe on the sea when they struck an unseen reef and capsized. Aoraki and his brothers climbed onto the overturned boat, and at that moment an icy south wind blew and turned their boat into an island, now known as the South Island, and Aoraki and his brothers into icy mountains. I really like such beautiful legends, the spirit of which you can feel for yourself. So I can say one thing for sure: dress warmly here to not to turn into icy mountains. But perhaps some of you know this mountain from another, let's say legend, or rather from these scenes. In addition to hiking through the mountains from the Lord of the Rings, there are several hotels in the park where you can stay and watch the starry sky, as well as a helipad for so-called heliski. That's when a helicopter transports you to a mountain top, from where you can then ski or snowboard down with the most gorgeous views. But even without that, an ordinary walk through this national park already brings a wagon load of endorphins. I really enjoy suspension bridges over mountain rivers, and this track of course made me very happy with it. This is already the second bridge we've crossed. The first one was about a quarter of the way in, and now we're halfway, with another view of that same glacier. Check out the mountain river below. It's this amazing aquamarine color. These bridge crossings really are something else. Love it. By the way, I highly recommend having hiking shoes, or at least high-top shoes, because some parts of the path look like mini swamps. Although honestly, no worse than the dug-up roads in my hometown. We made it almost to the end of the trail. There is about 500-600 meters left behind that hill. It's seriously breathtaking out here. This is already the third bridge we've crossed. I don't think I ever been on a track with so many river crossings. And man, the view with all of these, just unreal. We finally made it. It took us 2 hours and 57 minutes one way, not 3 hours round trip as they said. This is the Glacier Lake, and these are the people who kept passing us on the trail. And over there in the distance, that's the glacier itself. Not sure if you can see it from here, but it's much brighter with rich blue color, way more vivid than the Tasman glacier we saw yesterday. Oh yeah, someone's flying a drone around here. Just in case you asked, that's not me. But as they say never to flying a drone. I looked at the map. It's somewhere a little bit more than 2 kilometers to the glacier, so it's quite doable on a drone. Let's see if I can make it to the glacier. I just need to charge the drone a little bit after the last flight and I'll be ready to go. Now I can say that I'm satisfied, because this glacier already looks much closer to what I expected to see. That's it. We took some pictures and flew the drone a bit. It's absolutely stunning. While the drone was up there, we could actually hear an avalanche coming down the mountain somewhere. The ice was crunching super loud. We've tried to capture it on camera, but to be honest, we couldn't see it from here, so no luck. Anyway, we're heading back now and probably won't go to any other lookouts as sunsets in about an hour and a half, and that's exactly the time to the parking spot. So the plan, we'll head back, pack up, and move to the next spot, and then we make our way to Queenstown. So, to avoid wandering this trek at night, we headed back to the car because there was just over an hour left before sunset. We were walking along the road to the place where we parked our car, almost got there, and guess who we met here? Here is a New Zealand possum, just chilling right next to the path, totally unbothered. We tried our best to leave here before dark, avoid driving for too long time in complete darkness. But as you can see, we weren't very successful. 4 hours and 56 minutes instead of the promised 3. Okay, let's go. decided this was fate and it was time to stop and finally photograph the starry sky, especially since the all-morning clouds suddenly disappeared, revealing incredibly bright stars and the Milky Way. The most interesting thing is that these photos were taken on a phone, which I myself still refuse to believe. We just set a timer and put our phones on the roof of the car, and that was enough to take these incredible photos. Now we can say for sure that our plan for Mount Cook has been completed, and we headed back to Queenstown towards new adventures, which I will definitely show you very soon in the next video.